Perfect Blue. This film is a cruel, yet in certain points realistic, representation of the entertainment industry, what it means to be an idol, and how difficult it is to shed that enchanting persona with which the public views you. The story follows Mima, a singer belonging to the J-pop trio called Cham, who was performing a concert at an event in the city. During the performance, she publicly announces that she is quitting singing to fully dedicate herself to acting and kindly asks her fans for their support. Some of these fans are upset about her career change, including a security guard who secretly and obsessively stalks Mima online. Once in her apartment, she reviews letters sent by her fans, among which she finds one that reads, "I can see Mima's room from here." She later receives an anonymous fax calling her a traitor. At the time of her acting debut in a TV series with adult themes, Mima feels that her co-workers on set did not take her seriously, making fun of her angelic image. Her assistant then tells Mima about a website dedicated exclusively to her called Mima's Room, but warns her not to visit the site. As you can expect, Mima visits the website, finding a series of posts written in the first person that detail Mima's daily life, posting photos that appear to have been taken in her apartment, and even commenting on aspects of her life that only she and very close people know, increasing her concern. Following this, Mima visits her former bandmates, realizing that they have increased their popularity as a duo, becoming the sensation of the moment. In contrast, she has failed to make a breakthrough in the world of acting, fueling feelings of frustration and sadness. From this point, the pressure Mima endures, a product of her fans' rejection, the criticism of her career and image change, and above all, the success of her former bandmates, gradually undermines her mental stability. This makes it increasingly difficult for her to distinguish which events are real, which are hallucinations, and which are scenes for the television series. Mima soon finds herself haunted by her other self, Mima Idol, a hallucination of herself with the appearance she had when she still belonged to the group Cham. Mima Idol describes herself as a successful idol, satisfied with her career, who insists that she and her former bandmates are still giving concerts around the city, while the other Mima is an imposter who is tarnishing her image and criticizes her for leaving the group to become an actress and stoop to filming obscene scenes. Throughout the feature film, we witness Mima's descent into an abyss where nothing is what it seems, and where psychological problems are so expertly recreated that they pull us deep into the protagonist's mind, making us feel her bewilderment, exhaustion, and anxiety. Judas and Jesus is a controversial short film that essentially works as a satirical reinterpretation of the biblical story of Jesus and Judas Iscariot, portrayed here as a white sheep and a black goat, respectively. Mary Magdalene, meanwhile, appears as a blazing red goat, while the Roman soldiers are depicted as savage wolves. This 15-minute animation became notorious for its shockingly blasphemous and offensive content. The plot suggests that Judas betrays Jesus in exchange for $30, money he desperately needs to attend an adults-only show starring Mary Magdalene. The short doesn't pull any punches. Judas is born in the middle of an explicit satanic ritual, and the crucifixion of Jesus is staged like a flashy performance, complete with lights. On top of that, there are graphic sexual scenes between Mary and Judas, excessive even by the parody's own outrageous standards. That being said, it's worth admitting the film is technically well crafted. The animation is polished, the direction flows smoothly, and the visual style, despite its grotesque nature, is undeniably well executed. Some claim the animation was financed by Jewish groups, but there's no evidence to support such a rumor, and it's not my intention to dive into baseless conspiracy theories. What's certain is that Judas and Jesus is a German production that blends violence, dark humor, religious symbolism, and explicit scenes into a package guaranteed to leave no Christian indifferent. Wicked City may be remembered first for its erotic and grotesque imagery, but its real legacy lies in the way it pushed boundaries. The film became infamous for its graphic violence, sexual demons, and disturbing sequences, like the Spider-Woman seduction or bodies being devoured alive. The story takes place at the end of the 20th century, when a secret treaty maintains a fragile peace between the human world and the Black World, realm of demons. This balance is safeguarded by the Blackguard, but extremist radicals plot to destroy it. Agent Taki is assigned to protect Giuseppe Maillard, an old man essential to signing the treaty, and must work alongside a demon partner, Magi, a partnership filled with distrust from the very beginning. The mission quickly descends into horror. A Spider-Woman impersonates Taki's date and nearly kills him, devouring her real victim in a bathroom stall. In a hotel fortified by mystical barriers, a demon rips a receptionist's arm off with a scream before slamming him into the floor. Maillard, a perverse old man, insists on visiting a massage parlor, only to be attacked when a woman slowly absorbs his body, draining him of life and forcing his escorts to flee toward a spiritual hospital. On the way, a parasite bursts from Maillard's body and ensnares Magi, dragging her into the demon world for torture. Taki follows and rescues her, battling Shadow, the leader of the radicals. Shadow stabs him and nearly kills him until a mysterious lightning strike intervenes, saving his life at the last second. The violence continues relentlessly. Magi reveals her past relationship with Jin, once her comrade and now an enemy, and soon the two agents are ambushed again by the Spider-Woman. Trapped in her webs, they face certain death until the same unexplained lightning force intervenes once more. The final revelation comes inside a church. Maillard confesses that he always knew the truth. Taki and Magi were chosen to come together, destined to conceive a child, half human, half demon, who would lead both worlds toward peace. The intimate union of the pair seals that destiny, and with it, Magi gains the power to deliver the final blow against Shadow. Padak is basically the Korean version of Finding Nemo, except here you can clearly tell it was made by Koreans. The story takes place in a seafood restaurant where customers happily eat, indifferent to the fact that the fish are served alive, their suffering treated as part of the entertainment. A mackerel named Padak is caught in the ocean, hauled in a truck, and finally dumped into a restaurant tank, where every fish knows they're only waiting to be served. When she watches the cooks gut another fish right in front of her, Padak is horrified and vows to escape. But the older fish, led by a flatfish known as the Master, warn her that the only way to survive is to play dead. The Master carries a past full of grief. In one flashback, he watches his wife chosen by the staff cooked alive before his eyes. That trauma hardened him into a creature resigned to fate. Padak refuses to give up. She makes several attempts to break free, at one point leaping so high out of the tank that the others began calling her by that very name. But reality is brutal. To survive, the fish even turn on each other, playing riddles where the loser must sacrifice a piece of their body. Padak resists this twisted logic, insisting, along with another young fish, that freedom is worth the risk. One of her companions admires her deeply and dreams of seeing the ocean. But his curiosity leads him to the crabs, and it ends in tragedy. They tear him apart and eat him alive. His mangled body is tossed back into the tank, and some of the fish even try to feed on him. Padak, devastated, can only watch in horror. Not long after, she herself is chosen by the customers. Dragged into the kitchen, prepared alive, and finally placed on a table, she's mocked by diners who stick a cigarette in her mouth before devouring her. The next day, inspired by Padak's courage, the Master decides to rebel. When the tank lid opens, he flings himself out, fighting for freedom. Though caught, he wounds the handler with the ornamental sword Padak once used, and in one last desperate effort, he finally reaches the sea, gaining the freedom she never could. Pet Shop of Horrors. Count D is the mysterious owner of an exotic pet shop located in Chinatown, Los Angeles. The animals that the Count sells, gives away, lends, or simply exchanges for candy all come with a contract containing 3 important clauses. These clauses change depending on the animal being sold, and intentionally breaking this contract induces or provokes disastrous consequences for the buyer, consequences that are always related to the conflicts and problems in their life, for which the shop accepts no responsibility. While the intention seems to be to cause these misfortunes, the individual chapters of this anime are often based on these consequences and are presented as standalone stories, generally introducing one or more new characters in each chapter. In the miniseries, a detective named Leon Orcott serves as the nexus that ties the chapters together in an ongoing plot, typically in the form of a subplot within each episode. He initially suspects that Count D is a mobster using the pet shop as a front for illegal trafficking. But as the series progresses, he learns more about the pet shop and Count D himself, beginning a strange friendship between the two while he tries to uncover the truth of the exotic store. The pets range from normal animals to highly unusual ones, including mermaids, vampires, extinct birds, phoenixes, and other legendary species found only in books, leading viewers to wonder whether these creatures are real or merely figments of the buyer's imaginations. The pet that ultimately leaves the shop will vary and depends on the choice made by its new owner, although it is essential to follow 7 rules which, if disrespected, can generally lead to negative consequences. The ambitious, the dishonest, or those with undesirable qualities will pay the price, whether through minor actions or even with their own lives. Waltz with Bashir is an Israeli film set during the 1982 Lebanon War and the Sabra and Shatila massacre. Director Ari Folman sets out to recover memories his mind has repressed. Though he was less than 300 meters from the massacre, he retains no clear mental image of it. It begins with a dream from Boaz Rhine, a soldier haunted by 26 rabid dogs charging through Beirut. It's his memory of being ordered to kill the dogs so they wouldn't give away the hiding Palestinians. That story sparks a flashback in Ari, floating naked in the sea with a rifle, flares lighting the sky, walking past posters of Bashir Jamal, while women flee the refugee camps. The director interviews other ex-soldiers who also suffer memory gaps. Some recall only distorted fragments, a luxury ship in flames, the sense of safety inside a tank contrasted with the weakness of the PLO. Memory appears in broken flashes, animated drawings, childhood recollections, even musical dreamlike sequences of absurd destruction, a car chase sparking civilian gunfire, bombs raining over entire neighborhoods. A psychologist explains these as dissociative states. One soldier admitted the war felt like a television show until he witnessed slaughtered horses. Ari recalls weekend passes, discos, a broken romance, but still not the massacre itself. His memory finally unlocks after the news of Bashir's assassination and the order to moving to Beirut. The film condemns more than personal amnesia. It points to collective denial. Both the soldiers and the Israeli state refused responsibility. Though the area was under Israeli occupation, they allowed the Lebanese people to operate freely for over 48 hours, even using bulldozers to erase evidence. The film mentions that the killers dressed in Israeli uniforms. It also recalls how the massacre's chief organizer claimed to have documents linking Sharon and the Israeli army directly before being assassinated in a car bombing. The story makes clear that Ari, his comrades, and the high command all wanted to forget. Memory, fragile and malleable, can be rebuilt to escape guilt. The scene of the waltz with Bashir, a soldier firing wildly in a spinning dance as Bashir's posters stare back, becomes a grotesque waltz with death itself. Wizards. The story begins after a nuclear disaster that mutates the surviving humans into grotesque monsters. From this ruined world comes Delia, who gives birth to twin sons, Avatar and Black Wolf. When their mother dies, the brothers clash for power. Black Wolf is defeated, but swears vengeance. Thousands of years later, he sends an assassin to eliminate Avatar and begins preparing for conquest. Black Wolf builds his empire on the ruins of the old world, decorating it with Nazi swastikas and unearthing propaganda films from Hitler's Germany. His secret weapon is a projector capable of displaying images of Nazi war machines to terrify and demoralize his enemies. Through this psychological warfare, he massacres the gnomes in the trenches, showing how technology from the past can be repurposed into a tool of destruction. When Avatar discovers the truth behind the projector, he sets out to stop Black Wolf. He is joined by Princess Eleanor, the elf warrior Weehawk, and Peace, the assassin who defects to his side. Their journey takes them through devastated landscapes, into the judgment of the fairies after a prince's death, and into constant battles against Black Wolf's dark magic. At one point, Eleanor is accused of betraying the group, murdering Peace, only to be revealed as a victim of her enemy's mind control. The final battle unfolds on the coast. Armies clash violently, and once again Black Wolf tips the scales using his Nazi projector. Just as victory seems assured, Avatar infiltrates his fortress. There, after a tense exchange, he abandons magic altogether, pulling a gun and killing his brother point-blank with 2 shots, destroying the projector in the process. The narration closes with the line that Hitler had died again, framing Black Wolf as a symbolic reincarnation of the dictator. On a technical level, the film is remembered for its psychedelic atmosphere, the striking contrast between Avatar's childlike, cartoonish look and Black Wolf's grim design, and its Tolkien-inspired landscapes. Scorch evokes Mordor in both tone and style. A fun bit of trivia, one of the characters was voiced by Mark Hamill the very same year he starred as Luke Skywalker in Star Wars. Heavy Traffic is an X-rated animated feature that blends live action and animation to portray the life of Michael, an unemployed, virginal young man adrift in 1970s New York. This was the project Bakshi most wanted to make, but he only secured funding after the surprise success of Fritz the Cat, the first X-rated animated film. Michael, a cartoonist desperate to escape his bleak reality, finds refuge in pinball, which becomes a metaphor for the chaotic ups and downs of his life. At home, he endures the constant violence between his mafia father, Angie, and his mother, Ida, who attack each other with knives and guns. The story unfolds in a fragmented, chaotic manner. Michael meets Carol, a bartender who admires his drawings and slips him free drinks in exchange. But the film dives into deeply disturbing territory. Italians slaughtering one another, a man leaping into a pair of giant breasts, and the non-stop use of racial slurs, including the N-word, reflecting the gritty New York of the era, though its language has aged poorly. Producer Steve Krantz tried to tone down some of the scenes in hopes of earning an R rating, but the graphic nudity and violence locked the film into an X rating. That limited its theatrical run, yet it still managed both commercial success and critical recognition. The grotesque imagery only intensifies. Angie attempts to force Michael into losing his virginity. A mob boss is shot in the face while calmly eating spaghetti. Michael and Carol pitch his drawings as religious scripts, only for the narrative to veer into absurd detours, like an old man keeling over dead after seeing Michael's creations. It all builds to the shocking climax. Shorty the bouncer shoots Michael in the head in a brutally animated sequence, followed by Carol's surreal transformation into a crow. In live action, Michael smashes a pinball machine and meets a woman identical to Carol. The two argue, then dance, as the credits roll. Adding to the tragedy, Joseph Kaufman, the actor who portrayed Michael in the live-action segments, died in a plane crash just 2 weeks before the film's release, his first starring role. Fritz the Cat. It's a miracle that a movie like this managed to be a success, especially when everyone believed it was destined to fail. The movie follows the life of Fritz, a college cat obsessed with women and running away from the responsibilities of adult life. He is constantly chasing pleasure and getting himself into trouble, while a chaotic atmosphere full of riots, illegal substances, and social conflicts unfolds all around him. One of the most controversial aspects of the film is its depiction of the characters. Police officers are drawn as pigs, African Americans as crows, and Jewish people as whatever that animal is, which at the time caused a huge stir due to the piece's racial and political content. The plot, set in the 1960s, begins with Fritz seducing many women. Following a wild party at his dorm, 2 police pigs intervene. Fritz escapes, has an existential crisis, and abandons his studies. He visits a bar of crows, symbolizing racism, and befriends the crow Duke. After consuming some illegal substances, Fritz has a great revelation about the perverse system and starts a revolution in the street. His speech incites the crows to clash with the police. Violence erupts, resulting in several deaths, including Duke. Fritz hides but joins an extremist group of rabbits led by Blue, who plan to bomb a power plant. Fritz later regrets the plan, but the plant explodes with him inside. He survives and is taken to a hospital. Still weak, he pulls the girls he initially seduced onto his gurney when they visit him, and the craziness begins again, bringing the story to an end. Warner Brothers came very close to producing the movie, but backed out when director Ralph Bakshi refused to cut the explicit scenes or hire movie stars for the voice cast, as the studio demanded. Bakshi stood firm on his adult and provocative vision for animation, something that was completely groundbreaking back then. As a fun fact, to add realism to a scene set in a Harlem bar, Bakshi brought actual African-American activists into a recording studio and let them speak freely about whatever they wanted. He later edited those recordings and included them in the film unfiltered, achieving a raw and authentic result. The original creator of the comic, Robert Crumb, ended up deeply unhappy with the movie. Although he initially provided sketches and reference material, he hated the final result so much that he decided to kill off the character of Fritz in his comics, hoping to prevent further adaptations. However, that wasn't enough to stop a sequel from being made later. Cat Soup is certainly a strange and elusive animation. Even when the plot is simplified to the maximum, its narrative remains confusing and disturbing. The story follows a small kitten named Nyako, who travels the world alongside Nyata, his half-dead sister, attempting to retrieve the half of her soul that was stolen from her. But in this short film, nothing is exactly as it seems, and its surreal narration is packed with symbolism and open to various interpretations. The central message of the entire movie is the relationship between life and death, exploring the fragility and transience of the former, the acceptance and inevitability of the latter, and the physical and spiritual bridge that connects the two. Nyako and Nyata's journey can thus be understood as a traverse through this transitional space, a sort of purgatory that finally leads to understanding and accepting that life has come to an end. The innocent appearance of the protagonist kitten contrasts sharply with his fascination while watching a bird burn to death, disemboweling his friend the pig until it is hollow, and beating him with sticks until he is finished off, all of it gratuitous and amoral. In this sense, it creates very graphic scenes. Extreme violence is inserted with total naturalness into the character's behavior, which is arguably even more unsettling because the film doesn't call attention to these moments. Instead, it presents them with the same neutrality one would use to depict a children's game. This film is definitively a surreal, poetic, and highly violent journey that uses childlike innocence to explore the darkest themes of human existence. Animal Farm is a film that traumatized a lot of people who thought it was just a cute cartoon about talking animals, only to discover it's a dark and violent story about power and betrayal. The 1954 animated version is the most famous and controversial adaptation of George Orwell's novel. I'll admit, I haven't read the book myself, but I've seen many people online saying that this film is actually a very good adaptation of it. The story begins with the animals rebelling against Farmer Jones, dreaming of freedom and equality. At first, everything seems perfect as the animals run their own farm, but things quickly turn grim. Napoleon, one of the pigs, secretly trains dogs as his private army, chases out his rival, Snowball, and takes over the farm. The pigs grow corrupt, start living like humans, and rewrite the rules to suit themselves. Ordinary animals work harder while getting less, and anyone who protests ends up dead or disappeared, including Boxer, the loyal horse, who was sent to the glue factory instead of retiring. One weird fact is that the film was partly funded by the CIA as Cold War propaganda against communism. The film makes its anti-communist message very clear, showing how a revolution meant to bring equality turns into another dictatorship. Unlike the book, the film ends with the animals overthrowing the pigs to reclaim the farm. A more hopeful conclusion, but one that weakens Orwell's original warning that corrupt power often wins in the end. Made in Abyss is an anime that plunges us into an enigmatic and dark world where adventure and danger are intertwined in a place known as the Abyss. The plot follows Riko, a young orphan who lives in the city of Orth, which is built around the Abyss, a gigantic, deep chasm in the earth filled with both wonders and unknown horrors. The story begins when Riko finds a mysterious robot boy named Reg, who seems to have lost his memory. Reg possesses supernatural powers and is capable of using a powerful weapon integrated into his arm. Together, they embark on a journey into the interior of the Abyss in search of Riko's mother, a famous Abyss explorer known as a cave raider who disappeared long ago. As they descend through the levels of the Abyss, they encounter a series of dangers and marvels. The upper levels of the Abyss are full of strange and dangerous creatures, while the deeper levels harbor even darker and more disturbing secrets. The exploration becomes increasingly perilous, and the characters face physical and psychological challenges that test their courage and determination. One of the most unsettling aspects of the series is the way it explores the obsession with knowledge, the desire to reach the bottom of the abyss despite the mortal risks. The cave raiders often sacrifice their lives and health in search of answers and treasures in the abyss, giving rise to ethical and moral dilemmas. As the two continue their descent into the abyss, they face increasingly deadly challenges and discover horrors that defy their comprehension. Riko's desire to find her mother drives her forward, but also puts her life and the life of her companion Reg in peril. In addition to the physical dangers, the series explores the psychological consequences of abyss exploration, an affliction that affects those who return from the depths of the abyss, causing increasingly severe symptoms as they ascend toward the surface. This curse adds a dark and mysterious element to the plot, as the characters fight to survive and decipher its nature. It is worth noting that the creator of the series, Akihito Tsukushi, has faced controversy after being accused of having a problematic interest in children, often summarized as liking children too much, due to the dark themes and depictions involving the young characters in the series. The Last Unicorn is an animated fantasy film that has, over time, achieved cult status. The story begins in an enchanted forest, where a solitary unicorn lives. It is a place frozen in time, where nothing changes and magic still thrives. One day, the unicorn overhears some hunters saying that she is likely the last of her kind. This idea, which had never occurred to her before, strikes her powerfully. For the first time, she considers the possibility of being completely alone, the final one remaining. This thought compels her to leave her forest and embark on a journey into the unknown, into a world that has forgotten the existence of unicorns. On her journey, she discovers that humans no longer believe in magic. Some cannot even see her as she truly is, because the imagination and faith in the marvelous have faded over time. She is accompanied on this journey by Schmendrick, a clumsy, frustrated magician who still holds on to the hope that true magic can return. They are also joined by Molly Grew, a woman advanced in years and marked by disillusionment. This quest leads her to the castle of King Haggard, a bitter man who has imprisoned all the other unicorns in the sea, using the Red Bull, a faceless, unstoppable creature that obeys his will. Haggard is not evil in the classic sense. Rather, he is someone incapable of feeling happiness who tries to possess beauty and magic in the hope that it will give some meaning to his life. To protect her, Schmendrick transforms the unicorn into a human, who is then named Lady Amalthea. Tragically, this change is not superficial, as she begins to forget everything she once was, a unicorn. For the first time, she feels the fear of death and also experiences love. Her identity becomes confused, and she no longer knows if she is a unicorn disguised as a human or a human who only believes she was once something else. It is the most painful moment of the film because it represents the loss of innocence. It marks the transition to a stage where certainty is gone and where one becomes completely susceptible to being wounded. In the end, when she recovers her true form, she manages to free the unicorns from the sea, and the ocean fills with light as hundreds of them gallop over the waves, happy to be free again. Although this is a triumph, it cannot be described as an entirely happy ending, because when the unicorns are finally released and a protagonist reverts to her true form, she is no longer the same being she once was. This is cemented when she realizes that she will forever remember everything that happened during her human life. That phrase condenses the film's most important message, the idea that even the purest can be transformed by pain, that growing, learning, and surviving leaves permanent marks, and that sometimes, to save something, you have to lose a part of yourself. Barefoot Gen shows the life in Hiroshima during the final days of World War II and follows a young boy who lives with his family in the city. One morning, the atomic bomb explodes, destroying everything around him. The film shows the pure and raw horror of war. You see people melting in the heat, bodies burned beyond recognition, children screaming, and the suffering of survivors. There are no metaphors or symbolism, only the brutal reality of the bombing. After the explosion, Gen tries to help his mother and newborn sister survive among the ruins. He witnesses the collapse of society, starvation, and radiation sickness. The movie is famous for its raw and graphic portrayals of the bomb's aftermath, and has shocked many viewers who thought they were watching a regular animated movie. It's one of the most powerful anti-war films ever made, deeply disturbing and unforgettable. The story is semi-autobiographical because the author survived the atomic bombing of Hiroshima as a child and turned what he saw, what he lost, and what he could never forget into this film. Heavy Metal is an animated anthology bound together by the Lochnar, a glowing green orb described as the sum of all evil. In its first appearance, it melts the flesh off an astronaut in front of his daughter. Cornering the terrified girl, the orb begins recounting how it has spread violence and corruption across time and space. Each segment shows the Lochnar fueling destruction and lust, from a cynical cab driver pulled into murder to reluctant heroes dragged into worlds consumed by war, demons, and explicit sexuality. Graphic deaths, brutal armies, and a relentless obsession with eroticism made Heavy Metal one of the most controversial animated films of its era. The production itself was as chaotic as the film. The project gathered animators from France, Toronto, New York, and England, many of them eager to break away from Disney's suffocating constraints to work on something taboo and forbidden. But Columbia Pictures moved up the release date, forcing the crews into grueling 14-hour shifts, often in the middle of non-stop parties. The work even included provocative reference sessions. Playboy model Carol Debiennes posed to capture the sensual movements of Tarna, the warrior who dominates the film's final segment. Its soundtrack became legendary, pulling in Black Sabbath, Blue Oyster Cult, Nazareth, Cheap Trick, and even Devo, who show up animated in the Tarna sequence, performing Through Being Cool. Despite mixed reviews, some critics dismissed it as juvenile or opportunistic. Heavy Metal grossed over $20 million and became a midnight cult phenomenon, remembered for its violence, eroticism, and psychedelic atmosphere. Over time, it came to be seen as a direct challenge to Disney's family-friendly monopoly on animation, a libertine scream that fused blood, sex, and rock music into something audiences had never seen before. Angel's Egg. Beneath the ruins of an old city, soldiers hunt giant, ghostly fish-shaped shadows. There, a young girl is found caring for an egg. She is never apart from it, and we never learn why she guards it or how she came to possess it. The girl ventures out to explore the world, collecting water samples wherever she goes. During one of these explorations, she encounters a soldier, and without a single word exchanged, he begins to accompany her. From that moment on, the two people engage in a silent debate about the egg's contents, and whether it is worth finding out what is inside. It is an artistic and extremely stimulating film with a philosophical bent that requires patience and open attention from the viewer to grasp. Though often received as an ambiguous art film, Angel's Egg is a blend of profound meanings and symbols open to interpretation. The entire weight of the film rests upon the two characters, the girl and the warrior, whose inner worlds seem reluctant to reveal themselves but gradually become more tangible. Dialogue is scarce, and the film limits itself to showing us its characters and the dark, disconcerting world they inhabit. The plot is virtually incomprehensible, and it is very difficult to gain an idea of the genuine meaning of the symbolism present throughout the film. This may lead one to believe that it truly has no inherent meaning, and that the director's sole intention was to create and transmit beauty in the same way a moving painting would. The most defining characteristic of the movie is the absence of dialogue. However, the few words the protagonists do exchange are just as symbolic as the visual content itself. As you might guess, the main draw of this work is the symbolism presented, an elusive symbolism based on elements of Christianity, such as faith, Noah's Ark, and various other symbolic components. Midori, the Camellia Girl, is an animated film from Japan released in 1992. It was created by Hiroshi Hirata, an independent animator who struggled to get funding because of the film's disturbing themes. The film shows graphic violence and deeply disturbing scenes that have made it one of the most controversial pieces of Japanese animation. Despite its harsh imagery, Midori has gained a cult following among fans of experimental and underground animation. Copies of the film are rare because it was never widely released due to censorship issues and its extreme content. The story follows Midori, a young girl who loses her parents. Midori is poor, and her father abandoned her, leaving her with her very sick mother. Midori works by selling camellia flowers because she is eager to save money for school. One night, a suspicious man buys all her flowers and gives her a card with his address, offering help if needed. That same night, Midori finds out that her mother has passed away. Midori goes to the address and finds it is a traveling circus in financial ruin. This is not a typical circus, but a freak show filled with social outcasts and deformed performers. The members include a mummy lacking both arms, a woman who controls snakes, a sword swallower, and a trans girl. Midori is exploited by the circus members and customers. They force her to stay, telling her to forget her dreams. Her only source of happiness, 3 puppies, are killed and cooked by one of the members. Salvation appears in the form of Masamitsu, a dwarf magician and hypnotist with a god complex. His show of entering and exiting a bottle drastically increases the circus's sales. Midori and the magician fall in love, and he uses his influence to protect her from further abuse. When the circus falls back into ruin, as the manager flees with all the money, the performers disband. Midori decides to leave with the magician to start a new life. While waiting for a bus, the magician goes to buy food and is stabbed by a thief. Midori, unable to find him, believes he has abandoned her. Overwhelmed by grief and her own mental instability, she hallucinates the circus members as demons who have betrayed her. Plague Dogs follows the story of 2 dogs named Snitter and Ralph. They escape from a laboratory in England where scientists experimented on them for medical research. The dogs were subjected to painful tests and lived in constant fear. Once they escape, the authorities hunt them down because they believe the dogs might be carrying a deadly disease. The dogs struggle to survive in the wild, searching for food and shelter while being chased by humans and facing harsh conditions. One of the most heartbreaking parts of the film is Snitter's dream about finding an island, a safe place where he and Ralph can live happily. But the reality is cruel. After a long and painful journey, the 2 dogs are cornered. In the end, they swim out into the ocean, exhausted and close to drowning. In his final moments, Snitter hallucinates the island and cries out, asking Ralph if he can see it too. Ralph, even though he knows there is nothing there, tells Snitter he sees it too, so his friend can die with some hope. The film ends there, strongly implying that both dogs drown. Plague Dogs is beautifully animated, but it is a heavy and devastating film. It is not recommended for sensitive viewers, especially those who struggle with depression. FernGully, The Last Rainforest, tells the story of a lush tropical forest hidden near Mount Warning in Australia. Living there is Krista, a young, curious, and somewhat rebellious fairy who begins to question the limited world in which she grew up. Although she was taught that humans became extinct long ago, defeated and driven out by Hexus, the spirit of destruction and pollution, Krista senses that something is approaching. Krista perceives a latent threat. One day, Krista ventures out and crosses paths with Pips, a chaotic and amusing bat who was a victim of human experiments. Together, they discover a devastated area, full of trees marked with red crosses. There, she encounters a human named Zach, whom she accidentally shrinks to save him from being crushed. Zach becomes trapped in the world of FernGully, embarking with Krista and Pips on a journey that will transform him forever. However, a greater threat is unleashed. The industrial logging machine Zach's co-workers were using cuts down an ancient enchanted tree, unknowingly freeing Hexus, the antagonist who was imprisoned inside. Upon being released, Hexus is reborn as an entity of smoke and oil, feeding on pollution to gain strength and take control of the machinery. He is visually unsettling, with glowing eyes and a twisted smile. His way of speaking, moving, and corrupting the environment conveys a terrifying sensation. Furthermore, the depiction of human damage as irreversible, cold, and systematic is disturbing. The machines that fell the forest are huge, noisy, unstoppable, and feel like real monsters. Seeing the trees fall, the animals flee, and the magic fade generates a feeling of true anguish. The film is not afraid to speak about human ignorance. Zach represents someone who never questioned the damage his work was causing until he sees it from the inside. The problem is not the villains, but ordinary people who choose not to look. Although the ending has a positive twist, with Hexus being contained, the sense of threat never completely disappears. FernGully does not promise that everything will be fine. It only leaves the hope that the correct decisions can make a difference. Its darkness is a reminder that true terror can come from our own actions. The Adventures of Mark Twain isn't a film for everyone. It's for those who can appreciate a deep story filled with reflections on life. This extraordinary journey is based not only on Twain's fantastical works, but also on intimate elements of his own life. Did you know he once wrote that he felt like a stranger who had arrived on Earth aboard Halley's Comet? That's because he was born on November 30th, 1835, right when the comet was passing close to Earth. And on the day he died, April 21, 1910, the comet returned to the sky, just as it does every 76 years. The animation explores 4 of his key works: The Celebrated Jumping Frog of Calaveras County, The Diaries of Adam and Eve, The Mysterious Stranger, and Captain Stormfield's Visit to Heaven. These stories are woven into the main narrative, which follows Mark Twain himself as he travels aboard a flying machine, attempting to intercept Halley's Comet and leave with it. He's joined by 3 of his most iconic characters: Tom Sawyer, Huckleberry Finn, and Becky Thatcher. Twain left behind deeply philosophical texts in which he harshly criticized the human species. He argued that we are the only animal that is greedy, cruel for pleasure, and capable of enslaving and killing in the name of ideology or profit. In several of his unfinished works, Twain wrote about Satan, using the character as a vehicle to explore morality, fanaticism, and human suffering. One of those stories, The Mysterious Stranger, serves as the basis for the film's most disturbing scene, the appearance of Satan, portrayed as a headless, shape-shifting figure who doesn't act like a villain, but rather as a tragic philosophical character. This portrayal shocked many families who weren't expecting such heavy themes in an animated film. In fact, when it premiered in the US, several audience members walked out of the theater carrying their children, shaken by the scene's dark existential tone. Perhaps the most curious fact of all is that Twain was such a provocative thinker that he even inspired Anton LaVey, founder of the Church of Satan, who included him in the first edition of the Satanic Bible alongside Nietzsche and Fritz Lang, considering Twain a key influence. Felidae is a German animated film released in 1994. The movie was born as an animated film for younger audiences in Germany, but in the rest of the world it was labeled as a movie for adults. I have to say that Felidae is a very good film and I recommend it, but be careful because it might not be what you expect. The story is dark and mysterious. Its main purpose is to show how complicated, twisted, and decadent feline society can be, including murder and violence. The film follows Francis, a cat who moves to a new neighborhood and discovers a series of gruesome cat murders. As he investigates, he finds dark secrets about cult rituals, genetic experiments, and the violent nature of cats. Many parents around the world were furious because they rented this film for their kids, sometimes as young as 5, without knowing what it contained. German kids didn't seem to have a problem with it, but for children from other countries, discovering that part of Felidae is a total existential shock. Watership Down is an animated film that at first glance looks like a typical bunny story, but underneath that soft fur, it's a story about survival, violence, and the brutal side of nature. Fiver, a nervous rabbit, gets hit with a vision of blood flooding their warren, total destruction. No one believes him, except his brother Hazel. So they gather a small group and leave their home behind, crossing dangerous terrain to find somewhere safe. Predators are everywhere. Hawks swoop down, dogs charge, humans build fences and traps. The rabbits push forward, exhausted and terrified. And when they finally discover other warrens, it's not exactly a warm welcome. One place is ruled by General Woundwort, a massive rabbit who's basically a dictator. He keeps his rabbits under strict control, punishes anyone trying to escape, and runs his warren like a military base. The tension between his rule and Hazel's small band of freedom seekers drives the story into darker territory. The film builds a strange sense of realism. You see sweeping fields and peaceful skies, then suddenly rabbits are biting each other's throats open. Everything looks pretty until you realize how close these animals live to violence and death. Mixed into all this is a rabbit mythology. There's a sun god called Frith who gave predators claws and teeth, and rabbits speed and cunning. It's their way of explaining why life's so hard, why danger never really goes away. People love reading metaphors into it: wars, revolutions, refugees. The author always said he just wanted to tell a good story about rabbits, but it's hard not to see reflections of human struggles in the way these animals fight for freedom and safety. The rabbits keep going because they believe in finding a place where they can live without fear. Even if the world's brutal, they still hold on to stories and legends that give them hope. Genocyber is an anime that stands out for its dark and turbulent narrative filled with violence and horror. The story revolves around a secret scientific project known as Genocyber, a program born from a ruthless quest for military power by a clandestine government organization, seeking to develop a devastating force that could be used as the ultimate weapon in international conflicts. The story begins with 2 sisters, Elaine and Diana, who are subjected to brutal experiments by this organization and a mad scientist. These experiments involve the implantation of cybernetic devices in their bodies and genetic manipulation to unleash destructive psychic powers. Elaine ends up being killed at the hands of her sister Diana, who is under the control of the organization. However, Elaine makes telekinetic contact with her sister, and the two decide to fuse, becoming Genocyber, a monstrous being with the power to destroy entire cities through its uncontrolled psychic abilities. After a fierce battle, Genocyber escapes from the organization's agents. But unfortunately, when Elaine finds her only friend lifeless after falling from a building, she releases a massive power wave that wipes out all of Hong Kong, consumed by rage and grief. This marks the birth of a merciless and uncontrollable version of Genocyber, whose only goal is destruction. Throughout the series, dark themes are explored, such as the ethics of human experimentation, the abuse of power by secret organizations, and human suffering. In addition to the protagonist's sisters, other dark and disturbing characters come into play. Unscrupulous scientists, corrupt military officers, and ruthless conspirators, each with their own sinister motivations and a willingness to do anything to achieve their goals. The series takes place in a grim, decaying world where corruption and despair are the norm. Cities lie in ruins, society is on the brink of collapse, and hope is practically non-existent. Both Elaine and Diana face existential crises throughout the story. Elaine confronts the horror of what she has become and the loss of her humanity, while Diana seeks to destroy her sister and put an end to the devastation unleashed by Genocyber. Anomalisa tells the story of Michael Stone, a professionally successful man who is utterly broken inside. He travels to Cincinnati to give a lecture on customer service, but from the moment he lands, it's clear that something is off in the way he perceives the world. Every person around him has the exact same face and the exact same voice. The film never states it directly, but this phenomenon is inspired by FernGully syndrome, a real neurological condition in which a person believes that everyone they encounter is actually the same individual in disguise. Charlie Kaufman, the screenwriter and co-director, has said that Michael isn't literally suffering from this disorder, but that he used it as a symbolic device to illustrate extreme emotional isolation. To Michael, the world is a blur of indistinguishable figures. It doesn't matter who he talks to. Everyone seems the same, lacking identity or soul. Everything changes when he hears a different voice. It belongs to Lisa, a shy, unremarkable woman. But to Michael, she stands out. She has a unique face and voice, and he immediately becomes obsessed. He invites her to his hotel room, they make love, and for a brief moment he believes he's escaped his internal nightmare. But the more time he spends with her, the more her flaws begin to show. Lisa is insecure, talks too much, sings off-key. And then the inevitable happens. Her voice and face begin to fade, becoming just like everyone else's. This doesn't mean Lisa changed. It means Michael can no longer sustain the illusion that someone might be different. Lisa was never truly real to him as a person. She was just a temporary escape, a projection of hope onto someone who seemed unique. Once that illusion breaks, the sameness returns. And here comes a disturbing theory. What if Lisa never existed at all? Before meeting her, Michael buys a doll from a sex shop. The doll has a scar similar to Lisa's, sings and speaks Japanese, along with subtle clues like the doll shown at the end of the film. This suggests Lisa may have been a hallucination born of Michael's psychological desperation, a literal voice given to his inner void. But the film offers no definitive answers. In fact, it ends with a scene from Lisa's perspective as she writes a letter to Michael. It's the only sequence in the film not shown through his eyes. Her friend has a different face, her voice isn't generic. This moment throws the entire interpretation into question. Zekkyou Collection is a 1999 adaptation based on stories by manga author Inuki Kanako. She isn't very well known, but some people consider her a sort of female counterpart to Junji Ito. Her works often revolve around children, and this film focuses specifically on school kids dying in violent ways. The story introduces a boy named Bukita-kun, someone everyone avoids because of his looks and odd personality. He's obsessed with a classmate named Matsuko, whom he constantly harasses. She rejects him in a harsh, humiliating way. Heard by this, Bukita-kun runs into the street and is fatally hit by a truck. Sometime later, Matsuko feels relieved to be rid of him and throws away the gift he had given her. Bukita-kun had died thinking she loved him deep down, so he returns as a sort of zombie and begins stalking her even more directly. Terrified, Matsuko finds the discarded gift and destroys it, hoping that would end everything. But nothing changes. The next day, Bukita-kun is still there, professing his love even after death. Desperate, she runs away from him and ends up dying in a traffic accident as well, leaving Bukita-kun alone and heartbroken. This is how the movie begins. It's about 40 minutes long, and this is only the first story. The rest follow the same pattern. Bukita-kun falls for a girl, she meets him, he harasses her, she's disgusted, she runs, and she dies. Most of them unfold like this, at least until the ending. The film leans more into psychological horror than gore. There are barely any graphic scenes. The unsettling part is simply Bukita-kun himself, a relentless stalker searching for someone to love him but approaching people in completely the wrong way. The dialogue could be stronger, but the movie is still interesting to watch. What stands out the most, aside from the unpleasant character designs with bulging eyes and distorted faces, is the gloomy, dark, oppressive atmosphere, which is surprisingly effective. Another detail is the symbolism of butterflies. Bukita-kun likes catching them, and the movie draws a parallel between that hobby and the way he pursues girls, suggesting that to him, they are like wild butterflies he's trying to trap. Devilman Crybaby introduces us to Akira, a boy too sensitive for the world he lives in. He cries for others' pain and lives with the Makimura family, especially close to Miki, the love of his life. Everything changes when his childhood friend Ryo suddenly reappears with a chilling warning. Demons exist, and they're infiltrating human society. To prove it, Ryo takes Akira to an underground party called the Sabbath. There, all hell breaks loose, literally. Demons reveal themselves and begin slaughtering everyone. But the massacre isn't random, it's part of Ryo's plan to provoke a powerful demon named Amon into possessing Akira. And it works. But Akira doesn't lose himself, he keeps his heart, and in doing so, he becomes Devilman, a being with the power of a demon and the soul of a human. From that moment on, Akira vows to use his strength to protect humanity, especially Miki. As Akira fights the growing demon threat, the world begins to unravel. Ryo, now a public figure, exposes the existence of demons to the masses, unleashing hysteria, paranoia, and bloodshed. People start turning on each other. Humanity becomes more monstrous than the demons themselves. Then comes betrayal. Ryo fabricates a video framing Akira as a threat to humanity. From there, it all spirals. Akira's adoptive family is brutally murdered. Miko, Miki's rival, becomes a Devilman herself and joins Akira's cause. But it's not enough. The violence spreads like wildfire. Miki is hunted down by a human mob and murdered along with her friends. When Akira finds her mutilated body, he breaks. That moment becomes the end of who he was. Fueled by grief, he leads an army of Devilmen into open war against Ryo's demon forces. The world burns, and in the chaos, the truth is finally revealed. Ryo isn't human, not even a demon. He's Satan, banished from heaven, reborn on Earth with no memory of his past. Until now, he remembers everything. His goal was never to protect Akira or humanity. It was to destroy them, to wage war on God. But what he didn't expect was to fall in love with Akira. In the final battle, Akira dies, and Ryo, now fully Satan, sits beside his body. He talks, he reminisces, he laughs. But Akira is gone forever, and for the first time, Satan cries, embracing a corpse in a dead world. Transformers, 1986. Transformers had one of the best animated runs in history during the 80s. This movie was based on the animated TV series, featuring a script that was widely criticized at the time for its darker tone compared to the show. The movie begins with a massive mechanical planet, Unicron, voiced by Orson Welles, traveling through space and devouring planets inhabited by robots to consume their energy. The action takes place in the year 2005 on Cybertron. After a Decepticon attack, a great battle breaks out in which the Autobots are nearly annihilated. Unlike the animated series, in this film, characters who fall in battle actually die, and several familiar characters from the show are destroyed in combat. Transformers the movie set a precedent, as it was perhaps the first in the action genre where at a certain point you weren't sure the good guys were going to win. Things become terribly difficult for the protagonists, to the point of becoming downright depressing. The hardest part of the movie, and the moment considered the most traumatizing, is the death of Optimus Prime. After a battle with Megatron, Optimus Prime's damage is irreparable and fatal. Before dying, Optimus passes the matrix of leadership to Ultra Magnus. The scene is so well executed, thanks in part to the dialogue, and so emotional that, with all due respect, it stands on a level far superior to any dramatic attempt in the Bay movies. This moment reportedly caused children across the United States to cry in theaters. The Decepticons, while attempting to flee, jettison their dead and wounded, including Megatron, into space. Unicron finds them and offers Megatron a new body in exchange for destroying the Matrix, transforming him into Galvatron. In the climax, Galvatron destroys Ultra Magnus and seizes the Matrix. The Autobots arrive at Cybertron just as Unicron begins consuming it. Inside Unicron's body, Hot Rod fights Galvatron and manages to obtain the Matrix. The Matrix opens, transforming Hot Rod into Rodimus Prime, who destroys Unicron from the inside with its power. This was an incredibly dark animated film, the kind they just don't make anymore. Although critical reception was negative at the time, it eventually became a cult classic and is now much more highly appreciated. Coonskin. Although the title might make it seem like an extremely racist film, it's actually a fierce critique of racism and the stereotypes that white culture has projected onto the African American community. Ralph Bakshi uses provocation as a tool to dismantle those very same cliches. The film was released during the blaxploitation era, a movement that brought visibility to black characters but was also criticized for reinforcing stereotypes. Coonskin was attacked even before its release. Groups like CORE labeled it racist and threatened to boycott it. However, some community leaders who attended a private screening changed their minds after seeing the film. The story unfolds on two levels. In the live-action frame, two prisoners attempt to escape while one of them tells an animated story. In that tale, three characters, Brother Rabbit, Brother Bear, and Preacher Fox, arrive in Harlem after losing their home. There, they confront corrupt power structures, racist cops, the mafia, false prophets, and systems of oppression that exploit their community. As they climb the social ladder, they face off against the Godfather, symbol of institutional violence, and various criminal groups. One of the most striking elements of the film is the character Miss America, an allegory for violent nationalism and repression. Though she appears only briefly, her visual presence became one of the film's defining images. The narrative is intentionally chaotic, a story within a story, mixed with symbolic sequences, racial satire, violence, and social commentary. This disoriented many viewers on their first watch. Still, the film's political and irreverent subtext is clear. Despite its commercial failure, Bakshi never backed down. He considers Coonskin one of his bravest works. Today, it remains a cult film, hard to classify, but still relevant for its blunt satire of racism, cultural hypocrisy, and systemic inequality. Fantastic Planet is a French animated film released in 1973. The animation was created using cutout techniques, giving it a unique and surreal look. It's about a race of giant blue aliens who enslave the human race. Throughout the film, there are disturbing scenes, like alien children making two women fight for entertainment, and another where a human child escapes and sees the aliens meditating, turning it all into nightmare fuel and a terrifying psychedelic trip. The artistic style can feel unpleasant because it's extremely hallucinatory. Across forums all over the internet, Fantastic Planet is often described as one of the films that traumatized many kids, and most people can't finish it because of how implicitly disturbing the visuals are. Fantastic Planet became a cult classic because of its artistic style, eerie soundtrack, and strange visuals. Many people remember it as one of the most unsettling animated films they saw as kids. Madoka Magica. Don't let the character designs fool you. This anime is far darker than it looks at first glance. Everything begins in the fictional city of Mitakahara, Japan. Middle school student Madoka and her friend Sayaka stumble upon a strange magical creature named Kyubey. He offers them the chance to make a contract with him, their greatest wish granted in exchange for supernatural powers that will allow them to transform into magical girls. Their mission is to fight demonic beings known as witches, malicious creatures born from darkness, invisible to ordinary humans. These witches are extremely dangerous and are responsible for many of the disasters and crimes of modern society, as well as for driving people to take their own lives. Meanwhile, Madoka meets other magical girls, including a mysterious transfer student named Homura, who tries desperately to stop Madoka from making a contract with Kyubey. But at the same time, Kyubey keeps pushing her to accept it, telling her she would become the most powerful magical girl of all. Up to this point, nothing seems out of the ordinary. Magical girls fighting evil. But as the series progresses, it becomes painfully clear that this is not your typical magical girl anime. We realize that these girls are actually dealing with death, isolation, the agony of their wishes cost, and crushing existential crises. Following her friends, Madoka soon witnesses the darker side of being a magical girl, and now that she knows the truth, she wonders whether she should become one herself. The main characters all have different personalities and different reasons for becoming magical girls, which often leads to direct conflict between them. They survive by taking energy from defeated witches to cleanse their soul gems, crystals that hold both their souls and their magical power. If they don't purify their gems, they will eventually turn into witches themselves, and as you can imagine, this often leads to fights among them just to stay alive, both physically and through their various witch-hunting methods. But they all share the same tragedy. Their wishes often bring more harm than good once they come true, whether to themselves or to the people around them. Unicorn War. In an alternate world, colorful bears are at war with unicorns, the ancient inhabitants of the magic forest. The story begins with Maria, a young unicorn who falls into a trap inside a temple filled with deformed apes. A grotesque creature impersonates her mother and chases her, trying to devour her. Maria escapes, but that escape is only the beginning. Meanwhile, at Camp Heart, a group of bear cadets trains for war. Among them are Bluey, a bear obsessed with perfection, and Tubby, his brother, marginalized for being overweight and clumsy. Bluey constantly mistreats Tubby, publicly humiliating him for wetting the bed and using him as a pack mule. The Bible, the bears' worship, prophesies that whoever drinks the blood of the last unicorn will become eternal and beautiful, and Bluey begins to believe he is the chosen one. During a mission to the magic forest, the bears descend into a spiral of madness and depravity. They eat colorful bugs that trigger grotesque hallucinations. One bear stabs his own twin, thinking he's a monster. Another hangs himself from a tree after a bad trip. Later, Maria's mother is brutally murdered by the bears, shot with arrows and stabbed repeatedly. Only Maria survives. Despite the casualties, Bluey manipulates the military system and is promoted to army leader. He launches a campaign to destroy the magic forest. The bears burn it down and initiate an open massacre against the unicorns. Amid the chaos, Tubby tries to protect Maria, but Bluey, blinded by prophecy and hatred, fires a cannon shot that gravely wounds her. And then comes the ending. Among the rubble and charred bodies, only 3 remain: Tubby, Bluey, and Maria. Tubby tries to help the wounded unicorn, but Bluey murders him with a blow to the head. He kisses Maria and slits her throat with his knife, believing he is fulfilling the prophecy. Then he eats her flesh and drinks her blood, convinced he will become beautiful and eternal. But what follows is an abomination. Maria's body mutates into a black, viscous creature that first absorbs Tubby, then Bluey. From that shapeless mass is born a new dominant being, a human. The deformed apes who have witnessed everything kneel before their new idol. Thus ends the era of magical creatures, and the era of man begins. The Animals of Farthingwood is a British animated series that aired in 1993. The story is about the animals of a park who must move because humans are driving them out. Led by Fox and guided by Toad, they go on a dangerous journey to reach a nature reserve called White Deer Park. Along the way, many animals die from predators, traps, and the dangers of crossing human territory. It's a children's series, I warn you, but it's not about action, not about adventure, but about drama. Although it was made for children, the series has strong themes of loss, survival, and the impact of humans on nature. Many people remember it for the sadness of watching beloved animal characters die, sometimes in very graphic ways for a children's show. Over time, the Animals of Farthingwood became known as one of the darkest animated series ever shown on children's television. It left a lasting impression on viewers who watched it as kids.